My wife refused a paternity test, and I can't shake the feeling that my brother might be the father of her baby. What's the real truth behind it all? Hey Reddit, buckle up, because this is going to be a long one. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, questioning everything about my marriage and my family. For some context, my wife, Emily, and I have been together for 5 years, married for 3. We've had our ups and downs, like any couple, but I always thought we had a solid foundation. Trust, love, and respect, those were the pillars of our relationship. At least, that's what I believed. We started trying for a baby about 2 years ago, but it wasn't an easy road. There were months of negative pregnancy tests, the emotional roller coaster of thinking this is the month, and then the crushing disappointment when it wasn't. When Emily finally got pregnant, we were overjoyed. I can still remember the way she told me, holding up a tiny onesie that said "Daddy's little sidekick." It was one of the happiest moments of my life. But things started to feel off. Emily became more secretive, which I initially chalked up to pregnancy hormones and stress. She'd spend a lot of time texting someone, but when I'd ask who it was, she'd brush it off, saying it was just her friends from her mommy group. I didn't push her on it. I wanted to be supportive and not come across as controlling. Enter my brother, Jake. He and I have always had a complicated relationship. Jake is the golden child in our family, the charming, outgoing one who can do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Meanwhile, I've always felt like I had to work twice as hard to get half as much recognition. That being said, we've been close enough over the years. He's always been around, especially since Emily and I got together. During Emily's pregnancy, Jake was unusually present. At first, I thought it was sweet. He'd drop by unannounced to check on her, bring her food cravings, and even accompany her to doctor's appointments when I couldn't make it because of work. But over time, I started to feel like his presence was too much. Emily seemed to light up whenever he was around in a way that made my stomach churn. The real red flag came after our son, Lucas, was born. He's a beautiful baby, and I love him more than words can express. But the moment I held him in my arms, I had this nagging feeling I couldn't shake. Lucas doesn't look like me. I know babies change a lot as they grow, but he has this distinct dimple in his chin, something neither Emily nor I have. Guess who does? Jake. I tried to push the thought out of my mind. I told myself I was being paranoid, letting my insecurities about Jake get the better of me. But then, Emily started acting strange again. She was overly defensive whenever I brought up how much Lucas resembled Jake. She'd say things like, "You're imagining it," or "Babies don't have to look like their parents." She'd even get angry if I joked about how Lucas could pass as Jake's kid. The breaking point came when I suggested a paternity test. I wasn't accusing her outright, I just wanted peace of mind. I told her I'd been reading about how it's a routine thing some parents do to rule out any mix-ups at the hospital. But Emily exploded. She accused me of not trusting her, of being a horrible husband for even suggesting such a thing. She refused outright, saying it was insulting and unnecessary. Her reaction was way over the top, and it made my suspicions grow even stronger. If she had nothing to hide, why was she so adamantly against it? Now, I can't stop overthinking everything. I've been replaying moments in my head, trying to piece together a puzzle that might not even exist. Like the time Jake joked about how he'd make a great dad someday while holding Lucas, or the way Emily and Jake exchanged a look during a family barbecue that sent my stomach into knots. I've even started going through old texts and social media posts, looking for anything that could hint at an affair between them. So far, I haven't found anything concrete, but the doubt is eating me alive. I haven't confronted Jake about any of this yet. Part of me is scared of what he might say. What if he admits to it? What if he laughs in my face and calls me crazy? I feel like my entire life is hanging by a thread, and one wrong move could make it all come crashing down. So here I am, pouring my heart out to strangers on Reddit because I don't know where else to turn. Should I push harder for the paternity test? Should I confront Emily and Jake together? Or am I letting my insecurities and jealousy ruin my marriage and family? I love my wife. I love my son. But I can't shake the feeling that there's a truth hiding in plain sight, and I'm terrified of what it might be. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Update. First off, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my post and share their thoughts. The overwhelming response made me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did, but it also made me realize that I needed to approach this carefully. After sitting on it for a few days, I decided it was time to talk to Emily again. I waited until Lucas was asleep and approached her calmly. I explained that this wasn't about accusing her of anything but about clearing up the doubts eating me alive. I told her how much I loved her and Lucas, but the way she reacted to the paternity test suggestion had made me question things even more. Emily was defensive at first. She insisted that I was making something out of nothing and that my paranoia was unfair to both her and our son. But as the conversation went on, I noticed cracks in her composure. She started avoiding eye contact, and her responses became shorter and more clipped. When I pressed her about why she was so against the test, she broke down in tears. She said, "If you loved me, you wouldn't need this test. You'd just know. I told her that love wasn't the issue, it was trust. I begged her to understand how important this was for my peace of mind, but she refused. The conversation ended with her storming off to the guest room and slamming the door. I felt worse than ever, but her reaction only made me more determined to get to the truth. Another update. After the argument with Emily, I couldn't let it go. I decided to talk to Jake directly. If anyone was going to crack, it would be him. I invited him over under the pretense of having a few beers and catching up. We talked about casual things at first, but I could barely focus. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and just came out with it. I asked him if anything had ever happened between him and Emily. Jake's reaction caught me off guard. He laughed a full, belly laugh and said, "You're insane, man. Do you hear yourself right now?" But there was something about his laugh that felt forced. When I pressed further, his demeanor shifted. He became defensive, accusing me of trying to ruin our relationship over baseless suspicions. "Emily's your wife, and Lucas is your son. End of story," he said. But the way he avoided looking at me and kept fidgeting with his beer bottle told me there was more to it. Before he left, he said something that stuck with me: "You're going to destroy your family over a stupid hunch. Think about that before you do something you'll regret." It felt more like a warning than advice. Now I was more conflicted than ever. Emily was refusing to cooperate, and Jake was acting shady. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Another update. At this point, I realized the only way to get answers was to take matters into my own hands. I decided to get a paternity test without Emily's knowledge. I felt guilty about going behind her back, but I justified it by telling myself it was the only way to get the closure I needed. I collected a sample from Lucas during one of his naps and sent it off to a private lab. The waiting period felt like an eternity. Every moment was filled with anxiety, doubt, and guilt. I kept questioning whether I was doing the right thing or if I was destroying my family for no reason. When the results finally came in, my heart was pounding as I opened the email. The words on the screen felt like a punch to the gut: "Probability of paternity is 0%. I stared at the results, hoping I'd read them wrong. But no. The test confirmed what I'd feared all along. Lucas wasn't my biological son. Final update. I confronted Emily with the results that same night. I told her I knew the truth and demanded an explanation. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. For a moment, I thought she might deny it, but then she broke down and confessed everything. She admitted that she'd had a one-night stand with Jake during a rough patch in our marriage. She claimed it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, and that she didn't tell me because she was scared of losing me. "I thought Lucas would bring us closer together," she sobbed. Her words felt like a knife to my heart. I couldn't believe the woman I loved and trusted had betrayed me like this, and with my own brother. As for Jake, I confronted him again, and this time he didn't bother denying it. He apologized, but his apology felt hollow. He tried to justify it by saying Emily had come to him for support and that it just happened. The betrayal from both of them was too much to bear. I packed a bag and left that night. I've since filed for divorce and gone no contact with Jake. My parents are furious with him, but they're also disappointed in me for cutting ties. They keep saying family is family, but I can't bring myself to forgive either of them. I've started therapy to process everything, and while it's still fresh, I'm slowly beginning to rebuild my life. Lucas will always hold a special place in my heart, but I've decided it's best for both of us if I step away. Emily has made it clear that Jake plans to be involved in his life, and I don't want to confuse him as he grows up. This entire experience has shattered my trust in people, but it's also taught me the importance of standing up for myself and seeking the truth, no matter how painful it might be. To anyone else going through something similar, trust your gut. It's better to face the truth than live in doubt. Thanks for listening, Reddit. I'm signing off now, but I appreciate all the support and advice along the way.